So again, as I said, today we're going to be talking about the goal planning in BNI Connect. A couple of little housekeeping tips as we're going through. This is a live webinar, so if you have any questions as we're going through this webinar, please do feel free to ask those questions. The easiest way to do that is through the questions panel in the GoToWebinar software. You can type your question in. I see those questions pop up on the screen and I can answer them as we're going through the various material today. As I mentioned, the webinar is being recorded. It will be made available in a couple of different places. The first place you'll be able to find all of our recorded content and webinars is at youtube.com/BNI Connect Global. Again, that's youtube.com/BNI Connect Global. You can find our BNI Connect YouTube channel there. This has all of our videos uploaded to that site, from our educational moments, our short 3 to 4 minute videos. We also have our full-length webinars and some special announcements and things from Dr. Meisner himself. So do be sure to check that out. You can also go to our support page. Our support page is support.bniconnect.com. support.bniconnect.com. You can also get there by clicking on this question mark up here in the upper right-hand corner of BNI Connect, and that will take you to our support site. If you scroll down into the chapter training and documentation section, you will see a section called Recorded Webinars, and that's where we put all of our webinars more in chronological order for you so you can find them easily. Here's all the ones from January, for example, a couple of webinars with Dr. Meisner, and our regular series of webinars there where you can review them right through there or even go back to our YouTube channel and see them full screen as well. All right, so let's talk about goals. Now, traditionally, we may sit down with our leadership teams in the beginning of the year. We may take out a spreadsheet or take out a piece of paper and start planning out various things that we'd like to see for our chapter. The normal everyday things like how big do we want our chapter to be? How much business would we like to pass in the upcoming year? And up until that point, up until about a couple of years ago, it was kind of difficult to go back and then track that throughout the year. We'd have to be keeping our own spreadsheet, and maybe we'd have to go back in and manually update those numbers as we're going along. BNI Connect has made it a lot easier because you can store all of those goals in BNI Connect. Your chapter can review them and view them, and as you submit POMS reports throughout the year, it will actually update your goals with the totals directly from the system. And we're going to spend some time today showing you how to go through and do that for your chapter. Now, the place to do this is in operations. So as I've mentioned on other webinars, the different menu items along the top, we have network, operations, reports, tools, and admin. Network is all of your social media functions, so the place you go to connect with other people or to view regional documents or to send an internal message or to partake in the social media discussion groups. That would be network. Operations is where you go to do things, where you go to input data, for example, so where we put the POMS reports and we input the speaker rotations and we input the visitors and mentor pairs. It's also where we're going to input our chapter goals. Reports, on the other hand, is where we're going to get the information back out. So when we're monitoring our statistics, that's where we would go to the reports function. But as I said, today we're going to concentrate on inputting goals. So we're going to do that through operations, and we do this on a chapter level. So we're going to go to operations and chapter. Now, once we get to operations chapter, these are all the different functions that we can do in BNI Connect. We can manage visitors, we can manage the meeting, but the thing that we want to concentrate on is managing goals. And if we click on manage goals, we'll see two different things here. We have enter chapter goals, and we have view chapter goals. Obviously, if we'd like to make adjustments to the goals, we're going to go into the enter portion. If we'd just like to review them as we're going through the year, we can click on view chapter goals. Now, you may be wondering who has access to do this as part of the chapter. Now, by default, all of your leadership team will have access to go in and enter chapter goals. So that means your president, your vice president, and your secretary-treasurer will all be able to go in and enter chapter goals. Now, by default, the rest of your chapter will be able to go in and view the chapter goals so that they can keep up with them throughout the year as well. But you do have to be a leadership team member, again, by default, to be able to enter the chapter goals. So if I click on Enter Chapter Goals, The first thing that we're asked to do is choose a starting month and year that we're going to establish the goals for. Now, this will keep all of your chapter goals indefinitely, all the past goals that you've put in, as well as all the future goals, and you can choose really any date range you'd like. What happens, though, is that we can only put 6 months of it on the screen at a time, so you need to pick the start of the 6-month period that you'd like to input the goals for. By default, it's going to choose the next 6-month period, but you can adjust this just by clicking on it. And let's say that we'd like to start the goals from April of 2014. That's when I'm going to start inputting the goals. Now, the next two things that you're asked to do is to come up with a long-term vision and a mission statement. Now, this is a perpetual thing. It doesn't change every 6-month period. Similar to what you might do for your own business, we want to do for our chapter as well. Now, the long-term vision is kind of where do you want to be going a little bit further down the line? What is the end result that you're looking for? And I came up with one. This is my Burr chapter up in the Shiver region in Antarctica. And we sat down with the polar bears and the penguins, and we came up with this long-term vision for our chapter. To grow the chapter to be the largest chapter in the entire continent, and in addition, we want to be the #1 chapter in closed business and referrals within a 200-mile radius. So that's our long-term vision for this Burr chapter in Antarctica. Now, the mission statement, on the other hand, is kind of your philosophy and your ideas, the why behind how you're going to do that. So we came up with a mission statement again for our chapter up there in Antarctica, and it is, we're going to help members increase their business through a structured, positive, and professional word-of-mouth program that enables them to develop long-term, meaningful relationships with quality business professionals and create positive community goodwill. So that's our why. That's how we're going to do that. Now, once I click Go, it's going to bring up that 6-month spreadsheet starting from the month that I put here. So starting from April of 2014, I'm going to click Go. And what we'll see here is an online spreadsheet for our chapter goals. So you can see it starts here in April and it goes through September. So that 6-month period. Now we are going to establish our goals on a number of chapter success factors. So these are the key metrics that we're measuring for our chapter over this period of time. So we're looking at our attendance percentage, our total number of one-to-ones, our CEUs, our visitors, new memberships, total number of members in the chapter, the number of referrals, and thank you for closed business. So these are all the different metrics that we're going to keep track of over this 6-month period. You can see that there's different sections for each month. We have our actual goal, and then we have 2 opportunities to put in mechanisms. Now, the goal is going to be the number that we're shooting for. Mechanisms are different activities that you might want to do with your chapter, or things that you might want to emphasize in your chapter in order to achieve that particular goal. And we'll go through some examples of that in just a couple of minutes for each of the different metrics. The one final thing that you do need to take a look at is up here at the top of the sheet. You'll see that there's an opportunity to enter your goals either for the whole chapter or per member. Now, there's a difference in how we're going to do this, and it's really just a mental calculation more than anything else. It's kind of, do you like looking at a big number, or do you like looking at smaller numbers? So when we're looking at for the whole chapter, we're going to be coming up with a gross metric for each of these different things. So, for example, let's take a look at the total number of one-to-ones. If we're putting this in for the whole chapter, we're probably going to look for a number of, let's say if we have a chapter of 30 members and we're hoping that our members each do one-to-one per week, we might be looking at a number like 120. We're looking for that gross number of one-to-ones. Now, if we're looking at per member, we're going to break that number down to a much smaller metric. For example, for total number of one-to-ones, if we're looking for every member to be doing one-to-one per week, that's probably going to be a monthly average of 4 one-to-ones per member. When we're looking at the per member numbers, you do need to keep in mind that it will be based on your goal number of members in chapter, as opposed to the actual number of members in the chapter at that particular time. Most chapters that I've worked with in the past do this on a for the whole chapter, so they're looking for that gross number, which is sometimes a little bit easier to compare against the PALMS report as well, thinking mentally. Once you do enter your numbers, you can switch if you'd like to. Let's say that you're a new leadership team and your previous leadership team decided to do this as a whole chapter, and you as the incoming leadership team decides that you want to do this per member. You can switch that so it does the calculations based on per member. What it will not do is go back through historically and change the numbers that you manually entered. So you do need to stick with one going forward if you want the data to be correct. So I'm going to leave this as for the whole chapter, and let's start reviewing the different goal metrics that are in here. So attendance percentage. That one's a pretty straightforward one. What are you looking for your percentage of members that are showing up every week? Now, this is a metric based on the percentage of people present in the chapter. Now, I don't think the goal should be any less than 100, but if you are in a chapter that might be struggling to get your attendance percentage up, you might want to work your way up to 100%. One thing I also find easier is that I like to work backwards on this sheet. So if I'm looking 6 months from now, and let's say that I want to get our attendance percentage up to, let's say, 96% by September, and I know that our current attendance percentage is, let's say, somewhere in the 85% range, maybe I want to start with 85% and then work my way up towards 86, or towards 96. So let's say that's a difference of 11 divided by 6 months. So I'm going to want to go up by probably about 2% every month. So let's bring this up to, let's say, 87%, 89%, 91%, 94%, and 96%. So that'll get me from April through September with a goal of 96% towards the end. Now, what about mechanisms? Mechanisms is where you as a leadership team can plan out a strategy for achieving that. So what would things that you can do in your chapter in order to increase the attendance percentage? So certain things, let's say, like maybe making sure that you're actually marking people accurately, whether they show up on time, whether they show up at all, or whether they have a substitute. Maybe your previous vice president wasn't keeping that accurately in the PALMS report, and that's something you need to work on. So that could be a mechanism that you input. Make sure that attendance is being done properly. So once you get the attendance done properly, maybe something that you need to work on is making sure that the membership committee sends out their letters in a timely fashion for when people are absent. Now that's something that definitely can be, you want to look at earlier in the leadership team term. And probably in May, you'll start to have some people that might have 1 or 2 absences. So it's a good time to concentrate on that. So make sure the membership committee and vice president are sending out the control letters. Now maybe we're starting to move into the summer months, and what might be something you can do to increase attendance during the summer months? And maybe we can do an educational moment on the importance of bringing a substitute. So we can type in educational moment. And so on and so forth. These are all things that you can fill out and plan out your leadership team. Now, if you're looking for more ideas for other things that you might want to do in order to increase each of these various goals, click on this button right here called the Chapter Goal Guide. The Chapter Goal Guide in the upper right-hand corner, if we click on that, we can see the success driver attendance and different things that you can concentrate on. So here's one that I used, educate members on how or where to find a sub. You could have a bring your substitute day. The accuracy of tracking lates and absences. So these are all different things that you can put in to your chapter goals. All right, so the next one is the total number of one-to-ones. And for those of you that may use member traffic lights in your particular region, you'll know that our goal for a green traffic light in the one-to-one category is always to do one, make sure we're all doing one-to-one per week per member. So if we have a chapter of 30 members, our goal is to make sure that we're doing at least, let's say, 120 one-to-ones per month. Now that's a good place to start. So I'm going to put in 120. That would be our minimum goal here. Now, towards the end of the 6-month period, in order to make people even more profitable, maybe we're going to shoot towards doing 2 one-to-ones per member per month. So I'm going to bring that up to 240. And also keeping in mind that our membership is going to hopefully increase over this time period as well. And now I can kind of just go through and split the difference between these. And let's say 140, 160, 180, and let's bring that to 210 to split the difference there. Now, what are some things that we can do for one-to-ones? Well, we don't have to fill this out in order either. So let's say that in June, we know we're going to be hitting the summer months. And one good thing to do in the summer months might be to work on a BNI game. A lot of regions may use a BNI game during some of the slower months to garner more interest in the activities of the chapter. So maybe I want to start doing a BNI game somewhere in June. And the cool thing is that the BNI game lasts for a couple of months as well. So I can make sure that I put the BNI game in for a couple of these months. Now, the other good thing is that the BNI game hits on a number of different metrics. So I can go through and it will help to increase attendance as well because we put points towards attendance. It can also work for CEUs, so I can fill out these for the CEUs as well as visitors and new members. It really works for just about all of these different metrics. So now you can see we're starting to get our spreadsheet all filled out. Other good mechanisms for total number of one-to-ones is we can do an educational moment, let's say, on the gains exchange. So an educational moment on the gains exchange. And of course, you can just hit the chapter goal guide here to take a look at some other possibilities. So you could have a one-to-one contest and, of course, the BNI game. You can implement the mentoring program and stressing the value of one-to-ones during the new member orientation. All different ideas for increasing one-to-ones in your chapter. Now, looking at the CEUs, we have a similar metric, again, going back to the member traffic lights. We're looking for one-to-one per member, so we can, for the most part, try to mirror the total number of one-to-ones. So 120, 140, 160, 180, 210, and 240. And what are different things that we can do to increase the number of CEUs in the chapter? Well, maybe we can get people to attend BNI Connect webinars. That would be a great thing to do. And maybe the following month, we're going to make sure that we send out SuccessNet. Now, all members should be subscribed to SuccessNet anyway, but some people, it may go into their junk mail. Some people may have unsubscribed, and maybe as a leadership team, we'll send that out and say, hey, by the way, if you didn't get this, make sure that you read it this month. It is good for one CEU, and it also that gives them an opportunity to resubscribe to it if they have fallen off the list. And again, remember, you can hit the chapter goal guide and look at other ideas for coming up with CEUs. Now, the next thing is visitors. And as we know, visitors are great to have in the chapter. Visitors not only become new members of your chapter, but they also, even if they never join your chapter, they tend to bring themselves as relationships to people that are in your group. They also help to, visitors tend to buy stuff. When they come to a BNI chapter meeting, a lot of times they walk in and what they see is kind of a BNI mall. They say, oh yeah, you know what? I can go shopping with the handyman and I might need some legal services and I have a friend that needs a mortgage. So they bring their network into your chapter with them. So you can work on different things with increasing visitors. Now, a good goal for visitors, again, we look for, at least in our chapter, we look for 1 visitor per member per month. That's our goal that we use in our chapter. So let's say that I'm looking at a chapter of 30 members here at the Burr chapter in Antarctica. I would be looking for a goal of, let's say, 30 members. And maybe I want to increase that to, instead of just 30, I want to bring that up to, let's say, I want to double that in the next 6 months. So I'll bring that up. To 60. Different things that we can do to increase visitors. Again, we have our BNI game happening towards the middle of this period here. But we could also, let's say, bring your sub day. One thing chapters might do is they may pre-plan out stack days. Now, stack days is when you invite just a particular profession or maybe multiple professions within a contact sphere. You could plan out your stack days throughout the year. So maybe you want to do a, I don't know, contractor stack day. And maybe the next month you want to work on the wedding contact sphere. And maybe the next month is going to be your financial services. Maybe the next month is going to be a technology stack day. And again, you can plan those out for the whole year. And just click on the chapter goal guide for some more ideas. New memberships. We may want to skip down to number of members first. So I'm going to skip down to number of members, and let's say that we're at 30 right now. And we'd like to grow to about 40 members in the next 6 months. So let's do 32, 34, 36, 38, and 40. Now it might be easier to go back up to new members. The trick, though, with new members is that you also have to realize that there will be some attrition. There's attrition in every chapter. There's people that leave for a number of reasons, and sometimes they're for good reasons or reasons that we might not have any control over, such as, they got a new job, or maybe they're moving out of state, or maybe they just got so busy they just can't handle it and they need to take a break for a while. Those are all things that we may not be able to control. So I always like to overshoot for the number of new memberships to account for that attrition. So it looks like we're going up by 2 members each month, so I'm going to make sure that we're looking for at least 3 new memberships each month. And now again for these we can look at various mechanisms. So maybe one thing we can do as far as new memberships, maybe we want to make sure that we're doing the visitor orientation process so that we're explaining BNI to the visitors at the end of each meeting. Now, some of the things that you may be doing up here, again, we can reuse in the new memberships. So we are going to be doing stack days for these months. So I'm going to take these various stack days and put them in as mechanisms that also work for new memberships. And again, if you're looking for ideas, just click on the chapter goal guide. And the same thing for number of members in chapter. And one thing that might help with the number of members is retention. That's something that would work for keeping the number of members in your chapter high. So maybe you want to make sure you're doing a 6-month review with all members. And maybe we want to concentrate on making sure the renewal process is done with your secretary-treasurer smoothly. And maybe another thing that you want to do is make sure that the mentoring program is implemented. Again, all different ways that you can help to retain and increase the number of members in your chapter. Number of referrals. Again, our goal is always 1 referral per member per week. Hopefully people do more than that, but that is our goal, especially for a green traffic light on that. So we're going to look at, again, chapter of 30. So we're going to look at 120. And we probably want to increase that also as we're increasing the number of members. So maybe we want to do 130, 140, 150, 160, 180. What are different ways that we can work on increasing the number of referrals? Well, number one way is to do more one-to-ones. Maybe we can work on the gains exchange. Maybe your region is going to be holding an advanced training on 10-minute presentations. And again, chapter goal guide is there for you for some other ideas. And finally, the thank you for closed business. What is your goal for thank you for closed business? Now, we know that we want to be let's say, a $2 million chapter. So I can put in 2 million. That's what we'd like to be at in September or at the end of the year, which means that on a monthly basis, we're going to have to be doing, let's say that's $200,000 a month or so. That would be what? 200,000 times 12, that would be 2.4 million. So let's say we're going to do $150,000 per month on minimum. And ways that we can increase the thank you for closed business. Different ways you can do that. You can, again, educational moments on how to report. Maybe you can also work on having people use the online slips and teach people how to use the online slips for the thank you for closed business. Now, after you've filled this all out, or even if you've just gone as far as you can for a day, just click on the Save button, and that will save your chapter goals. You can go back and edit these at any time you'd like to. And of course, if I'd like to go back and review the goals, I can always go back to Operations Chapter and click on View Chapter Goals. And now we can see all of these already filled out for us. Now, we don't process a lot of POMS reports up in Antarctica. I might have to fire my vice president up there. But let's take a look at a chapter that uses these. I know that in the United States here, we have a particular region that uses these very readily. They're one of the top regions in the United States. I'm just going to pick a random chapter here and take a look at their chapter goals. Now I'm going to go back. Let's go back to the beginning of the year for this chapter. And we can see that they've been using the chapter goals, and we can see how the actuals have been filled in for them as well throughout the year. So we can see this chapter had a goal in January of 100% attendance, and they reached 92%. Now we can also see that throughout the course of these months, they've been increasing. 92%, then 98%, and so far in April, they've had 100% attendance. Their total number of one-to-ones, they were shooting for 180, and they hit 171. You can see they increased these, 228, 195, and they can see in April, so far they've had 35 of their 294 goal. CEUs, a similar thing. They actually beat their goal here in February. You can see their goals for visitors, their goals for new memberships, their goals for number of members in the chapter, the number of referrals, and again, thank you for closed business. Now, Zona says, can we print the Enter Chapter Goal screen so that the team can easily work on this together? And absolutely, you can do one of two things. Either just bring a laptop with you and sit with your leadership team, and you could do these all together. And of course, there's always, whenever you go into this view function, so even if your goals are completely blank, so if I was just to choose I'm going to choose one of my other random Antarctica chapters here. If I go to View Chapter Goals, you can see that they're blank here. I can export this to Excel, and I have a nice little spreadsheet here that I can either print out or just use as a spreadsheet. And Zona asks, what is the value of keeping track of all this? Well, what I've found is that this does help to keep you as a leadership team focused and organized. Running a chapter is very much like running a company, and just like you might schedule out your promotions for your business, or you may schedule out your employees' schedules and timelines and goals for your own company. It's the same thing with your BNI chapter, and really trying to establish and lay out what you'd like to do for the rest of the year. I mean, a lot of times, as a leadership team, we might just go in and kind of wing it from week to week to week, and just try to come up with ideas as we're going along. We can be much more effective if we can plan out some strategies throughout the year. And this just helps us to keep us focused and organized. Now, that's on a chapter level. Now, what this also does is it provides a little bit of accountability for you. I know that we also have some director consultants on the call with us today, as well as some executive directors on the call with us today. The nice thing about doing it this way is that it can be shared with not only your other chapter members, so that your chapter members are aware of the goals and the progress, but it also helps your director consultant and your regional office keep track of those goals as well. So they can look at the goal variance reports and other things in the system so that they can help you throughout the year to help you to hit your targets. And it kind of comes down to the same old that which gets measured gets done. So hopefully that helps, Zona. Bill says, how many CEUs do we get for a webinar? One CEU for the webinar. So if you go back to your home screen and you go to your submit CEU slips, you should be able to submit right here a BNI webinar, a quantity of 1 for this, and make sure you click submit to get a CEU for today's and future webinars. All right, we are at the bottom of the hour. I do realize that some people may need to leave right away at the bottom of the hour. I am happy to answer any questions that you might have, so I'm always happy to stay on these calls as long as people have questions. For those that do need to leave right away, I do want to thank you for being here today. Again, this is being recorded. It will be made available on youtube.com/BNI Connect Global. It will also be made available on the chapter website. Now, the support site. The support site also has a ton of documentation on it. So if you forget how to do this or you're looking for a reminder, if you go back to Operations Chapter, you'll see next to a lot of different functions a little question mark. That little question mark, if you click on it, will bring you to our documentation on the support site. And it'll remind you how to do different things, and it'll give you explanations on how everything works, including explanations of all these success drivers and other ideas for completing this. So let's see. Gandalf says, how do I sign up for the SuccessNet newsletter? Go to bnisuccessnet.com, bnisuccessnet.com, and in the upper right-hand corner, it says subscribe. All you need to do is enter your email address and click on submit. So again, successnet.com, bnisuccessnet.com, and you can subscribe there. Let's see. Joanne says, does this populate automatically? Does the POMS report entries populate automatically into the chapter goals? Yes. That is the biggest purpose of this, is that it helps to take those POMS reports and it populates the results into your chapter goals so that you can, once you've established your set of metrics, it will do the analysis and put the results in there for you. So I hope that helps, Joanne. Dorothy says, when we take attendance at an advanced training, does it appear in the CEUs of the member? And the answer to that one is no, it does not. People need to submit the CEU slips manually as if they were passing in paper. The place that it does show automatically is on a member's profile. So as you mark them as having attended at a regional event, on their training history tab, you will see the various training that they attended. But the CEU credit does need to be, they do need to hand in a CEU slip either electronically or physically at a chapter meeting. So hopefully that helps, Dorothy. All right, what other questions? Again, it can be on the goals program or anything else that you might have a question on. I'd be happy to answer those questions for you. All right, if there's no additional questions, again, thank you everybody for being here today. If you found today's webinar to be of value, if you got something out of it, I would a great referral for me would be to please let your other chapter members know about these BNI Connect webinars. You can find the latest list of upcoming webinars either on your regional event calendar, or if you go to support.bniconnect.com, again, you can just click this little question mark here in the upper right-hand corner. You will see all of the webinars listed here. Our next webinar is online slips and referral tracking. We're going to go through the whole online slips program and tell you how it works. That's going to be tomorrow, 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern. And again, you can review these recordings both on the support site. If I scroll down a little bit past the upcoming webinars, we'll see in the chapter training and documentation recorded webinars. You can also find them on youtube.com/BNI Connect Global. youtube.com/BNI Connect Global. All right. Excellent, everyone. Thank you so much for being here and have a wonderful week. Happy connecting.